Hello! So it's usually Vicky that gets to do all of these videos, and I thought I was going to add to the pile today. So this was something that I did earlier, and I thought this is a really useful, practical application of the breathing exercises that we teach on our course. So let me tell you a story. I was in the post office today, which doesn't sound like a very exciting start to the story, and in all truth it wasn't particularly interesting. But I get very anxious around big groups of people. That's something that I'm still dealing with on some level. And I was in the post office and there were quite a lot of other people there, and I needed to be there because I had a giant pile of packages that I needed to post. So I was kind of handling it for a while, and then I was standing in a queue and I just felt myself becoming anxious. And I got those things that tend to happen when we get anxious, or when we start noticing symptoms, which can often trigger anxiety in itself. So I noticed my heart rate speeding up. I noticed my breathing speeding up. I noticed that I was finding it more difficult to breathe into my diaphragm. And I thought, okay, we need to breathe into my diaphragm. So I was trying to do that. And because I was starting to get anxious, I was finding it much more difficult to do that. So what would have happened maybe a couple of years ago is that I would have got more and more and more anxious, to the point where I would probably have started to have some sort of panic attack, which for anyone who's had a panic attack is not a lot of fun. And when you have long COVID, it can be even worse because it, triggers all sorts of symptoms and stuff. So I thought, well, I don't need to go down the panic attack route now because I have tools to stop me from doing this. So as soon as I noticed these things, I thought, okay, what do I do here? Which exercise is the best one? Because as I said, I tried focusing on my diaphragm and that hadn't really worked. And then because it hadn't worked, I then started getting more worried. So I went for one of our favourite stress busters. And this is the many small breath holds exercise. And this is absolutely perfect for any sort of stress onset. And I just settled into that exercise and it really, really helped. My heart rate sort of normalised. In fact, it actually eventually started dropping. My breathing became slower. My breathing went more down back into my diaphragm. Any sort of tight chestness that can be brought on by anxiety, that all kind of filtered away. And that kind of sense of, that feeling in your head that you get when you start to panic, that all kind of went away and I sort of came back to the room, if that makes sense. So this is just such a great exercise. This was one example of how I still use these exercises every single day. And it's such a good one for long COVID as well, because there is a lot of anxiety associated with long COVID, with illness, with long-term illness, with uncertainty. But it also can be really, really great when we do notice symptom onset for whatever reason. It doesn't really matter what the reason is. So that's my little story. If you'd like to learn more about all of these exercises, there are still spaces on our January breathing courses. So we would love it if you were to join us there. And what we would also absolutely love is if you have found any breathing exercises that really help you in certain situations, do let us know, because all of this really helps to share with people, because we can all learn from each other's experiences. So that's the end of my story.